So hello, it's great to be here once again in this wonderful community. And I know our subject this month is on friendship, so I thought I'd talk about Maitri, which is the Buddhist term for friendship or friendliness, loving kindness, being kind to yourself, which, as the title of the sermon says, being kind to yourself is actually a gift to the world. So let's talk about that idea and focus on the idea of friendship in that deep spiritual sense. And although we're talking about Buddhism, this is not just limited to the teachings of the Buddha. Of course, Jesus also lifted up the qualities of loving kindness and true friendship. And so do all the other great way showers and other religions of this planet. But today I thought it'd be fascinating to look specifically at some of the ideas that the Buddhists talked about and elucidated so well. Maitri is the Sanskrit for loving kindness and sometimes referred to in the Pali language as metta, but they mean the same thing, loving kindness or friendliness, unconditional acceptance of ourselves. And they're one of the four virtues of Buddhism, four great virtues of the Bodhisattva path, the path of selfless action. And they're sometimes called the four immeasurables, which I love because they can't be measured or limited. They are limitless qualities that we all have within us, those four great qualities of those who dare to live the spiritual path. And these four qualities are, as we said, first one is loving kindness to ourselves and to others. That's the one we're focusing on today. From that leads to compassion, which is empathy for the suffering of others, because when we can be friendly and reach out to others, then we begin to empathize with them and are kind to them in that way. The third quality, the third immeasurable quality is empathetic joy. It's the happiness that we feel when others are happy. And you know, that's a high level, isn't it? Because normally we're happy because something good has happened to us. But the higher level is to be happy because somebody else is happy. We share that joy because we know we're connected. We are one. And then fourthly, the fourth quality is equanimity. That's even-mindedness in the midst of all kinds of situations. Serenity, because we are treating everyone impartially. And that's a really hard task too, isn't it? Because some people we love better than others. But when we can look at all with loving kindness, with compassion, with empathy, with joy, then we begin to rest in that place that is beyond personal opinions or likes or dislikes. And it's a very powerful place. It's a limitless place. And it empowers us to live remarkable lives. So those are the four immeasurables of Buddhism. And like I said, let's look at Maitri particularly because I believe that all the others unfold from it, right? When we can be kind to ourselves and others, then we're halfway there. Jesus said, love your enemies, right? It is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom, the ability to do that, to love others. It's a non-violent approach. And in Hinduism and Buddhism, they talk about ahimsa, non-violence, not being angry or aggressive with ourselves or others. And when we're in that loving kindness consciousness, we're easier on ourselves. We're not so harsh with ourselves. It's also non-judgmental, and goodness knows we need that in the world today. The idea of not judging others or ourselves, just simply being willing to look with an impartial gaze, right? Not to agree with everything, but not to judge everything and say that one is better than the other. It's this willingness to look, right? To look clearly, fearlessly at things, look at ourselves fearlessly, that is very powerful indeed, because it's transformative. It gives us the ability to see beyond our small ego selves and see beyond the idea that we are always trying desperately to change something, right? To make it better. And we fall into that trap in unity sometimes, don't we? We're trying so hard to be transformed and changed, and every day in every way it's getting better and better, which is great. I'm nothing against that. But sometimes we're so hard on ourselves because we haven't done things better, or we're not yet perfect, etc. So we're hard on ourselves. And if you're hard on yourself, you're going to be hard on others. When we can instead, though, take the non-violent approach of acceptance, of looking without judgment, without having to change everything, then it leads to a certain steadfastness. It gives us the ability to really do the work. And it also leads to empathy, because we understand we're all in the same boat, right? What's that old phrase? Be kind to others because everyone is fighting a great battle. And I think that's so true. We're all fighting battles of one kind or another. So we need to take a load off of ourselves and help our friends take a load off themselves. So Pema Chodron, one of my favorite spiritual teachers, she's an American-born Buddhist nun, and she focuses greatly on Maitri in her writings and her talks and lectures. And I want to talk about 4 of her approaches to this, because I think they're very practical and helpful. Because it's nice to talk about loving kindness, isn't it? It's nice to talk about all these wonderful virtues. But hey, how do they work? How do we practice them? I want to be non-judgmental, but that's tough sometimes. First thing she says is, give up fixing or improving. And self-improvement, New Age thinking is all about self-improvement, human potential, right? In every way, in every day, in every way, it's getting better and better, etc. But sometimes that can lead to trying to fix ourselves, in a sense, like if I had a better body, I could love myself more. Or if my spouse was not so this, that, and the other, I'd have a good marriage. Or if my house was bigger, or if I had the perfect job without that hateful boss, then my life could be happy. Unfortunately, these are all external things, aren't they? And this doesn't guarantee our peace of mind. So trying to fix through changing the outer is destined to let us down, I think. Pema Chodron says it's a kind of subtle aggression against who we are. That's interesting, isn't it? A sort of subtle aggression against who we are. Sometimes we just need to let ourselves be ourselves, right? And allow that. Doesn't mean we slack off and put up with bad behavior, but it means don't be so harsh on yourself. Relax so you can truly look. Because when we're rushing around trying to fix or change or transform, we're very much not at home. We're not with ourselves. And so we're missing out on that gift of being present to what is. So that's the first thing. And it leads to number 2, which is not running away from what is, right? And our society runs away all the time. We're running like mad people everywhere, whether we get in our cars going down the highway at 100 miles an hour, or we're addicted to the latest fad drug, or to alcohol or sex or food or whatever it might be. We're running away from what is, hoping that these things are going to satisfy us. And Pema Chodron suggests the antidote for this running away is simply be curious, passionate, and inquisitive about who you are. Look at who you are. If you want to take that extra piece of cake, look at it and examine that. Why do I need that? Why do I think that piece of cake is going to fulfill me? I'm curious about this. Do I need to do that particular behavior today? Maybe there's another choice. Maybe just noticing what I'm doing gives me freedom to do something different. Because what I found, and maybe you have too, is that change, true change now, not fixing it change, but real change happens naturally when I can simply be present to who I am. It's like in a relationship, the famous line, when you give up looking, then you find. And there is truth to that, I think, isn't there? When you give up searching and trying to desperately to find that perfect spouse, that perfect partner, then we push it away for some reason because we're too intensely occupied with the problem and how to fix it rather than being relaxed in our true selves. Wow, cool stuff. So 3, It's a welcoming approach because, first of all, we're welcoming ourselves home. We're embracing ourselves, right? Warts and all, accepting who we are initially without trying to change it or fix it, right? Without running away from it, we're simply looking at it. Pema Chodron calls it the juicy bits of ourselves. And I love that. You know, often the problems, the ones that we think are the bad parts of ourselves are really the juicy bits, the bits that make us who we are. So we don't want to get rid of them. We want to see them for what they are. They've brought us here so far. There must be something within them that may be helpful. And in my own experience, I found that my greatest blocks ultimately become my greatest ways of moving me forward, the greatest impetus. So rather than trying to get rid of them, I say, oh, this is interesting. Why is this here? How did this happen? What are the origins of this particular seemingly negative situation? And when I could do that with honesty and openness and being present to it, wow, new information, not just intellectual information, new deep heart information comes to me. So it's a very welcoming approach, right? We are welcoming ourselves and we are welcoming others as a result, because all are welcome in God's kingdom, right? That's the teaching of Jesus. We're all in this together. We all feel the same things ultimately. There's a commonality, and we can learn from everything, even our greatest, quote, enemies. In fact, perhaps even more so than others, because they really push our buttons and teach us a lot about ourselves. I don't have to be right, because that is my ego saying that there's a right and a wrong. In the real universe, there just is what is, and I can just embrace that and be happy within that. In fact, sometimes to say you're right and I agree is the best way to move beyond a stuck place. You know, I don't have to take a stand here. The stand is taken deep in my heart and my steadfastness, not in the outer where I have to be right. So the fourth thing that Pema Chodron talks about is releasing the escape of projection. And I think this is huge. Nearly everything that happens to us is some form of projection. We don't want it in ourselves, so we throw it out on somebody else, right? We see it projected. We blame, we name, we shame, as we say. And it's a form of spiritual arrogance in a way, isn't it? It's saying that, oh, I'm perfect, but look at you. One day you'll be perfect too, but maybe not quite right now. Well, that's foolishness. Jesus said the same thing. He says, you know, you spend so much time looking at the speck in your brother's eye and don't even notice the log in your own, which is what he's talking about. Is the same thing that Pema Chodron is talking about. It's that escape into projecting on others so we don't have to look at ourselves. And when we give that up, then we begin to lovingly care for ourselves more instead of always looking to the other to change. We begin to say, what is it within me that could possibly change today? Here's a quote from Pema. She says this, and it's sort of summing up what those 4 points that we've just talked about. She says, basically, making friends with yourself by being embracing, relaxed, no running away, just simply being there, giving up fixing and changing. When we make friends with ourselves, we make friends with all those people too, all the other people that we come into contact at any given time. Because when you come to have this kind of honesty, gentleness, and good-heartedness combined with clarity about yourself, there is no obstacle to feeling loving kindness for others as well. Whoa, that's powerful. Let's take those key words there. When you have this kind of honesty, right? When you can be present to what is, you're honest, aren't you? You're not running away anymore. You're looking, you're seeing yourself for who you truly are, warts and all, the good and the bad, the ugly and the wonderful. And you're accepting the whole thing, but you have a certain radical honesty. You're also gentle, because honesty sometimes can be harsh. You know, we're not talking about being harsh with ourselves, being honest is important, but it needs to be gentle too, so that we're not harming ourselves by our radical honesty, right? We're still gentle with ourselves and therefore with others. And good-hearted, Dalai Lama talks about that word, good-heartedness. It's the, what do they say, the angels of a higher nature, right? That's the good-heartedness. There is within us that which is inherently good and whole and perfect. And when we can live from that consciousness, then we become good-hearted people. We want to do the kind thing. The other day, my daughter was coming down the street with one of her children and hit something in the road. I think it was a nail, and immediately one of her tires went flat, and not just a slow puncture, but flat. And luckily, she wasn't going 70 miles an hour on the highway, but she was able to pull over, and she began to change the tire in the neighborhood. Well, immediately a man came out and said, "How can I help?" and just came down the path and changed the tire for her, and without her even asking. And they got to talking, and it was a lovely interaction. But she said, "Well, give me your name and number, and I'll write something to you or do something for you." And he said, "No, don't do anything for me. Simply pay it forward." And I just loved that whole interaction, because there it was, when we could be gentle and kind to ourselves and not beat ourselves up for doing stupid things. All of a sudden, somebody shows up that's going to be helpful to us. And I love that response. So that person was fairly spiritually wise, wasn't he? Pay it forward, do something to help another person. And goodness knows we need this in our world today, because we are in a crazy world, folks. I know I'm writing and sharing this a few weeks before you're going to be listening to it, but in Texas here, we just had two crazy multiple death things, one from a car and another one from another shooter. And it seems like everywhere you go every day throughout this country, there's some egregious incident is happening that can make you nuts if you're not careful. So we need these messages of friendliness and loving kindness first to ourselves, because we may get so angry and upset that we're harsh on ourselves, and that doesn't help anything. So practicing these principles of simply being honest and looking and loving with an embrace of gentleness and kindness, and the clarity also that comes from that, is very, very powerful to help ourselves. And then we can go forward and help others and help our world, help America, because there is so much good in this country, but there's also so much craziness. And so it has to begin with us. So the principles of unconditional love and kindness and friendliness to ourselves and others is especially powerful today. And I know it's not easy. The spiritual path is not easy. It's not always easy to grasp intellectually, but our heart knows, right? Our heart has its reasons which the mind cannot understand, cannot comprehend. I'm paraphrasing Pascal there, but we know it. We are of God, and therefore we can rise to this beautiful consciousness of Maitri, of loving kindness, of metta. And in the meditation, we are reading the Metta Sutra, which is that beautiful scripture from Buddhism about the essence of loving kindness. So thanks for allowing me to be here today, and I hope you got something out of this message. Many blessings. So our theme today is friendliness, friendship, and loving kindness. And so for our meditation, I would like to read a beautiful scripture or sutra from the Buddhist tradition. It's called the Metta Sutra, or the Loving Kindness Sutra. And as we go into meditation, and as you hear these beautiful words that are thousands of years old, I invite you to let them truly speak to your heart, because this is not just about what's happening in our heads. This is how our heart responds to the truth of our being. And Metta Sutta says this: this is what should be done by those who are skilled in goodness and who know the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm, and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are meek or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near or far away, those born or to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upward to the skies and downward to the depths, outward and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to fixed views. The pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. So when we enter that consciousness of loving kindness, empathy for others, empathy for ourselves and our journey, then we become remarkable, open, limitless beings of love and kindness. We begin to emanate light. We begin to feel peace deep in our hearts and joy in our souls. Let that be the truth for each of us this day. And so it is.